What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson, back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Today is Monday, May 6th, and we are 4 days away from the start of Washington Commanders rookie mini camp, which will be May 10th through the 12th this weekend coming up. And we get the official schedule release in 3 days on Thursday. So I'm very excited. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday, one of the days this week. So we got the schedule coming out where we get to finally, like, we already know who we're playing. We get to finally put the dates on the schedule so we can get our fall ready. And then we get to see our rookies go to work. And we know we want to see the rookie quarterback get to work this weekend. We're still anxiously awaiting Washington to announce the number reveal for our rookie class. And I think what's holding it up, I believe Jaden Daniels is making some type of acquisition for the number he's going to be wearing here. By the time I post this video, we could know what numbers all our rookies are wearing. I believe we're the final team to announce what our rookie numbers are going to be. But today I just want to reflect. I just want to sit back and recap the offseason that was the 2024 Washington Commanders offseason. Possibly the busiest offseason I've ever seen an NFL team had, because new managing partner and owner Josh Harris and his ownership group that includes Mitchell Rails, Mark Ean, Magic Johnson, they had their hands full because they spent $6 billion on a franchise that was once revered, respected, feared, and dominant in eras before. There was a run between the 80s and the early 90s where Washington went to 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. That's a life myself and a lot of fans in my age demographic could never fathom, could never understand. Because not only between 1999 to 2023, not only was Washington bad for the majority of that 25-year span, they couldn't catch a break. They were bad. Everything surrounding the culture of the organization, the morality of the organization, everything looked awful. We were the butt of jokes. We were always the conversation starter on negative headlines. Everything about doing business, playing football was wrong with this organization for the last 25 years. So they had their hands full when they purchased this team. This is not purchasing any other team. Not a team that's never seen success, a team that's never been to the mountaintop. You're trying to get that old thing back. You're trying to restore a feeling, and you're talking about a team that needs a new roster. You're talking about a team that needs a real talent evaluator running the football side of the program, a team that needs a new stadium, a team that needs a new headquarters. Your hands are full. And while as a fan, it's hard to accept and swallow this pill, everything cannot be cemented. All I's can't be dotted and T's crossed in one offseason. Well, they did a hell of a job in starting that process. And I will give them an A+ for the start of ushering in a new era of Washington Commanders football. And here's why. So the season ends 4-13, 8 losses in a row. They did not sit on their hands for 1 second. Within minutes of the announcement that Ron Rivera, head coach / president / GM, de facto everything, coach-centric model man, within minutes of that, you hear Washington is interviewing every talented executive that works in this league, including the Ian Cunninghams of the world, the Mike Borgonzis, the Alec Halabys, and of course the Golden Goose, Adam Peters. And then you hear the request list of all of the head coaches we're interviewing for the job of head coach. We're talking Dan Quinn. We're talking Ben Johnson, who was the hottest name on the list. We're going to circle back to that name in a second. But you already saw that a thorough process was underway. And Josh Harris let it be known immediately we're going to no longer be a leaky operation in Washington, because he was hiding the fact nobody knew Bob Myers and Rick Spielman were low-key a part of this whole process, and they were going to be helping him. He hired a committee to help him pick the right guys, because he's not going to come in and Dan Snyder, Dave Tepper his ass in the building and say, I know all answers. He said, I'm going to hire people that know what they're doing, people that have put together franchises before, and the process got underway. We knew Adam Peters was going to get this job once he took the interview, because Adam Peters has been waiting for the right job for quite some time. Something about picking second overall and being able to satisfy your quarterback need, having 6 picks in the top 100 and $100 million in cap space, something about that is attractive. Something about that is attractive to guys, because guys lined up to head down to Miami to interview for our GM job. And we eventually landed on Adam Peters. This is the first time in my fan life Washington has hired a general manager and gave him full autonomy of the football side of the organization. So to those saying, but we hired Scott McCloughan. Scott McCloughan did not run shit. Bruce Allen still ran things over here. He was the mouthpiece for Dan Snyder. We've seen them try before. We've seen them lie before. We've seen them do everything but build it the right way. Adam Peters is the first general manager who's hired to legit evaluate talent, make all the selections. This is a guy who's helped put together Super Bowl caliber teams in New England, Denver, and in San Francisco. Everywhere this guy's gone, success has followed, and you're not going to find a more likable guy. Look at the Hollywood smile. Everywhere he goes, everyone wants to root for Adam Peters. So immediately, the floor of public reception changes as soon as you hire Adam Peters. So that's a check for Josh Harris and company. And then everybody, including myself, wanted Ben Johnson to be the head coach of this football team. He was the belle of the ball of the head coach hiring process. He ends up not taking a job anywhere. He multiple interviews, he ends up calling Washington and saying, I want to stay in Detroit. Sometimes you got to know when your goose is cooked. Sometimes you got to know, I'm not ready for this situation. I was mad in the moment, but maybe Ben Johnson's self-awareness saved us from another Jim Zorn type situation, because clearly this guy was not ready to be a head coach. And someone who is ready for another shot at being a head coach is Dan Quinn. Myself and a lot of fans, we undermined and underestimated the impact, the influence, and the respect he garners league-wide. People fucking love Dan Quinn. Not even just on a coach level. They love him on a human level. So what our GM and head coach have in common is they are the ultimate people's persons. People will go to war for these guys. Michael Parsons talks about this guy like a father. Dorrance Armstrong, a lot of the free agents we brought in, people love Dan Quinn. They would sacrifice themselves for this. They love this guy. He has a way with people, and we saw how it ended for him in Atlanta, and clearly he's been counting down the days since he got fired till he could get back to get another head coaching job. This is a guy with a mountain-sized chip on his shoulder right now that is dying to get back out there and prove to you, I'm a head coach. I'm not a coordinator. And his job he did in Dallas, getting that defense to become what it was, that their defense was bottom of the barrel, bottom 3 in the league, and turned into a top 5 unit over the last couple years, who's lead the league in takeaways since he got there. All he does is turn defenses around. But the job he did in Atlanta, 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Everybody's going to remember that. But that's a team that should have won a Super Bowl and honestly should have been in back-to-back Super Bowl, because the following year after that, they were on the goal line, about to score on Philadelphia and get back to the NFC Championship, where they would have probably won against Case Keenum and the Vikings. And it should have been back-to-back Super Bowl trips to Atlanta. But once he lost his offensive coordinators, things went south. He had to go be a coordinator again for a few years and get his morale back. Get built back up to get another shot at it. I like a story like this. And I completely was unfamiliar with your game and how you resonate with people. The staff that Dan Quinn put together here in Washington is a phenomenal one. It's very respected guys all over the board, former head coaches, former coordinators. We're talking Cliff Kingsbury, David Blau, who was just quarterbacking a few months ago. We're talking Brian Johnson from Philadelphia. Don't want him to call plays, but I do want him in my QB room developing my quarterback with me. Anthony Lynn. We kept on Tavita Pritchard. Joe Witt Jr., he brought over from Dallas with him. Ken Norton Jr., one of the more revered linebacker coaches in the league. Daryl Tapp. We got a Pagano. We got Sharif Floyd, who played for the guy. So you're seeing guys that either coach with him, played for him, or just know him. They signed up to come work for Washington. And the leg up Dan Quinn had over other candidates was that people know him, love him, and want to work for him. Unlike some of these younger guys who took a longer time to put their staff together because it's their first time doing this thing. But it was not a first rodeo for Dan Quinn. So we bring in Adam Peters. We bring in Dan Quinn. You get to see them interview together. You see the cohesion and you see the synergy between the two. They look like a match made in heaven. This video is a recap of what we've done in the offseason. None of this is results driven because we have to see how Sundays turn out. I'm just here to let you know they're doing a bang up job of starting and ushering in the new era of Washington Commanders football. We need to see results at some point, but amazing start through the GM and coach hiring cycle, which takes us to free agency. With 1,000 impending free agents, so much money, and holes all over this Swiss cheese ass roster, Washington went into free agency saying, we don't want to build through free agency. We want to supplement through free agency. But when you have a lot of money and you know the roster is ass, a lot of work has to be done. And over 23 acquisitions were made in free agency. Zach Ertz, Dorrance Armstrong, Tyler Biadasz, Frankie Louvu, Austin Eckler, Brandon McManus, Nick Allegretti, Cleveland Farrell, Marcus Mariota, Dante Fowler, Tyler Ott, Jeremy Chin, Bobby Wagner, Anthony Pittman, Noah Igbenogany, Michael Davis, James Pierre, Michael Dieter, and Olamide Zaccheaus. They did not play any games with this offseason at all. And while we didn't go big fish or superstar hunting, we got good veteran leadership. We got a lot of short expiring contracts, and we got younger talent as well that are seeking for that next big deal, meaning we're going to get a lot of cap rolled over to 2025. This is how you methodically plug and play, fill guys to establish an identity and establish a culture here in Washington. Are there still holes on the roster after free agency in the draft? Absolutely. But you're not going to tell me Washington did not do a very good job in starting the roster construction here. They asked Adam Peters a question in his opening presser about the roster, and he gave a pregnant pause and just sat there before giving an answer. That pause told me everything I needed to know, and it's that Adam Peters feels the same way about this roster as I do. The exact same way. This roster's ass, and nobody's job should be safe here. And that momentum carried into Washington's 2024 draft class because we know the biggest need here was quarterback, obviously. But they approached the draft in a way of when your roster is that bad, when you're a 4-win football team, everything's on the table. Best player available. We need blue chip talent here. We cannot force pick for need. And that was exhibited as soon as the draft got underway. We obviously knew a quarterback was going number 2. They ended up landing on Jaden Daniels. They ended up going through the entire process. It feels after the fact that Jaden was the guy the whole time, but they never showed their hand, and they conducted a thorough, stone unturning process throughout the entire way, which included an unconventional way of hosting all 4 quarterbacks that they're thinking about on the same trip with 18 other prospects. The Top Golf Gate, the Mixer, something we've heard they've done in San Francisco his whole time there, something they do in New England as well. Remember, the stench still is here in Washington, even though we got new guys here. So this would have never made news if it was the Patriots that did it or the 49ers that did it. But because it's Washington, you got cucks like Mike Florio who have to make a big deal about it. Well, guess what? We still drafted Jaden Daniels. It ended up being a non-factor, and we're just doing business a little bit different now. We're going to go through and exhaust all options before coming to a finite decision. So our draft class started with Jaden Daniels, and then our next pick completely showed that we're going best player available from now on. We're not going to just, we need a guy, have to pick a guy here. They took a defensive tackle, an uber talented defensive tackle, Jerzon Johnny Newton out of Illinois. We have a logjam at defensive tackle right now. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, bum ass Fedarian Mathis, John Ridgeway, etc. We have a bunch of guys in that interior, and they still took an interior guy, which means Jonathan Allen may be cooked in 2025 when he's $23 million on the cap. But it also means it gives Dan Quinn the versatility of having three ridiculously talented defensive tackles that he can move around. He could get all these guys on the field at the same time. But a draft class that included Jaden Daniels, Johnny Newton, Mike Sainristil, Ben Sinnott, Brandon Coleman, Luke McCaffrey, Jordan McGee, Dominique Hampton, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Love the draft class. Everybody's giving us at minimum an A. I see A pluses. I see A minus. I see a whole bunch of A's. I haven't seen a guy give us a B in the draft yet. Draft grades right after the draft are kind of pointless, but you get my drift. GM search, check. Head coach search, check. Free agency, check. The NFL draft, check. Washington has conducted themselves like a well-oiled machine business again. It's clear signs and the tides are changing in Washington. The RFK bill is getting closer to getting there. Once it goes through the Senate and signed by the president, they're going to get them a new stadium locked in. They're not going to announce or tell us anything until that happens. They just got the news from DC that they're going to demolish RFK, which is another step closer to Washington returning to its home where all its glory took place, where we're going to see RFK 2.0 in a dome. But we're not there yet. We're going to probably hear about them locking in a deal for some new land in Loudoun for new team facilities before the end of the year. Not there yet. But as we head into the week of the schedule change and the start of rookie minicamp, which will lead to voluntary OTAs, which will lead to minicamp, which is mandatory. And then there's that month and a half slog of the offseason that we're going to have to survive between minicamp and training camp, where there's a lot of nothing happening. We're just a couple months away from Washington, led by our rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, entering training camp with our new coaching staff, our new front office, and our new ownership, all uniting like the Avengers to get the ball rolling on 2024 and beyond. Just give the team some credit. They're not going to address every need. They're not going to check every box that you have for this organization in one off season. But they were pretty damn close, though. They were pretty damn close to fulfilling all of our team wants and needs in one off season. Give Josh Harris and company a round of applause for how they've handled this, but now things must show growth on the football field. Not giving you a record prediction at the time. I'll do it when the schedule comes out, but I'm not looking at 2024 for wins. The win column is not what I'm looking at in 2024. I'm looking at the eye test, the development test, and most importantly, are we establishing an identity? Is there something you see when you watch this team that says, okay, this player would be a Washington Commander? You see how they said the Commander tag? The Commander tag they gave to certain players on their draft board? There are certain franchises you watch and you say, oh, yeah, he's definitely a Commander. Oh, he's definitely a Raven. He's definitely a 49ers. I want that for us. Because once we get to that point, we're doing something right. And the league copycats that shit. I'm looking for identity and development. And most importantly, I'm looking to see if the quarterback we drafted at number 2 is developing on schedule. That's all that matters this year. I'm not saying going 1-16 or 2-15 or 3-14 is okay. But I'm saying I think our floor dramatically increased, and I believe all that matters for 2024 is Washington competing, is the coaching helping, instead of hurting, because our last coaching staff, it didn't appear like they had a full grasp of the actual players and talent that they amassed for their roster. Are the coaches getting through to the players? Are they establishing an identity? And did we draft a quarterback that is coachable and that is developing on schedule? That's all that matters for 2024. All these playoff hopes, all these locking in Jaden for rookie of the year, all these Washington's going to hit the ground running. Everybody relax. Everybody let it happen organically and just sit back and let's watch the show, because what Josh Harris, Adam Peters, and Dan Quinn have done this offseason is amazing. But none of it matters if none of this resonates into future success. But let it happen. We're in the right now. And while our floor has rised significantly, don't have high hopes for this year. Let high hopes happen. So if we somehow overachieve and were to pull a Houston, it feels amazing. It feels euphoric. Let it happen naturally, y'all. Rookie mini camps coming up in a few days. So is the schedule release. The new era of Washington football is brighter than I've seen, and it feels like a substantial brightness rather than what I'm used to and how Dan Snyder used to try to build this team up. It feels like we finally got the right guys to build this shit the right way. I'm excited. We'll probably know about these numbers soon. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Commander Rio, out.